So, what is programming? Realistically, computer programs are just a bunch of zeros and ones that give the computer instruction. When you write code, the compiler converts this code into a language that computers can understand. In short, programming is just a recipe book for computers that are readable to humans, kind of like baking recipes. Unless you're a psychopath that uses Notepad, we're going to use an integrated development environment, or as commonly known as an IDE, called Visual Studio Code, created by Microsoft to write our code. This will give us useful tools such as code suggestions and built-in code executors. If you're trying to ask what programming language you should start with, personally, I recommend Python, which is what we're going to be using in this tutorial today. But realistically, you can go with anything. Although Python is very easy to learn and very beginner-friendly, as the syntax is very easy to understand. If you want to start with a hard language like C++, go for it, but you will most likely struggle and end up quitting. Alright, so now we're going to install Python. So to install Python, go to python.org, and downloads, all releases, download Python 3.21. I already have it installed, but I'm gonna just reinstall it, so install now. Alright. Now we can close it and test that it's working. Open up CMD and type in Python. And there you go, you can math calculations. And this is, right here, is Python. You can write, now that you're actually in Python, you can write your first line of code. So first thing, we're gonna call something called a function, which is right now print. So you write print, and then a colon, not a colon, a parentheses for the, and in these parentheses are the arguments, and this takes a quotation, otherwise known as a string, which we'll get to when we're talking about variables, and we can do print hello world. And there you go, you just wrote your first, technically not program, but you just wrote your first line of code. Congratulations, you're going to be writing way more from now on. But right now, this is the most basic form of code you can do right now. But now, we're going to actually get a proper development environment, because we're not going to be developing programs with the command prompt unless you're a psychopath. Alright, now let's get the development environment. So what we're going to do is we're just going to search up Visual Studio Code and download, or I'll put this link in the description, and download whichever one you're on. I'm on Windows. I already have it installed, but I think I can go through the installation process again. Accept the agreement, create a desktop icon, install, launch Visual Studio Code. Now that you're in Visual Studio Code, there's nothing here yet, but go to the sidebar and click on extensions, and we're going to have to download a few extensions. So first, we're going to have to download Python, and go here, and then click install. For me, I already have it installed, so it's just on that, and then download Code Runner, and install that. And then once you're doing that, we can start setting up our development environment. Alright, so to set up our environment, we can click add folder, and then just go wherever you want to add it, and then go new, and let's call it Python. Add it. And then now we have a folder. And then Python files are main, you create a new file, right click on the folder, and then click main.py. And now we have a Python script that we can run. So, let's talk about variables. So variables are little things that store data. So if you're in an algebra class, let's say x equals 5, and x is equal to and we can always call this. So let's say print, then if you remember the print function from a couple minutes ago, you can print x. And if we run the Python file, you see it prints 5. Now, we can edit variables, so we can do print x plus 3. And it should print 8. Now, we can also have different stuff as variables. We can have strings, which is, let's make y equal to I like hot dogs. And we can print y. Say, I like hot dogs. Now, you're also able to change variables, so you can say x equal 5, and then beforehand you can say x equal 8, and I'll just say that and then change it to print x, it will equal 8. So you can also have decimals as variables. So you can do print x and you 10.001. Now, what if we want to check if a variable equals something? Well, that's where if statements come in. And so you can do if, it's pretty much if this, then that. And so if you do if, so let's declare a variable, x equals 5, and then if x equals 5, because we don't want it to be confused with setting it to 5. So in if statements we do if x equals 5, then then do a colon and then press enter, and usually it should indent for you, but under if statements you're supposed to indent. So then print x is 5 with the smiley face, and do that, and x is 5. And we can also do else statements. So if it doesn't equal this, and else statements go under if statements. So if x equals 5, then print x is 5. Else print x is not 5. And let's make x equals 7. And should x is not 5. So we can, so variables, so right now you've learned variables and if statements and else statements. Now let's learn about functions. Alright, so now we're going to learn about functions. So functions are basically reusable code snippets. So let's say I want to make a function that prints my name and has my name is next to it, and I can easily reuse it for any name I want. I would do def print my name and then parentheses, and then these parentheses contain the arguments of the function. And I'm gonna just do name, and now I can do, and these variables will change based off of when you call it. So you can do print my name, let's just use it right now, and then I can do Johnny, and print my name is colon space plus, and then this will add name to this print statement, and then you can run it, and then it says my name is Johnny. And we can do this multiple times and reuse this statement as many times as we want. So we can do print my name, let's say Alyssa. I butchered the spelling of that. And then it says my name is Johnny, my name is Alyssa. And let's say we want to add two numbers, we'd have the function return a value. So let's say def add two numbers, number 1, number 2, colon enter, and then indent, and then we can do return number 1 plus number 2, and this will return it like it's as a value. So we can do print add two numbers, 1 plus 1. Oh, oops. That's stupid. It's not like an actual calculator. You have to do 1, comma, 1 as the two arguments. And then those arguments will be plugged into these, and there we go, 2. We can do this for anything. 10. So we can do this for even division too. So let's do divide two numbers. 1, number 2. And then we will return number 1 divided by number 2. And then print divide two numbers, 10 divided by 2. Oops. 10, 2. And we got 5, and then we got 10, and then we got 5. And as like a little practice thing, I want you to try this, but for multiplying and subtracting. And I pause the video, do whatever you want, even experiment with new, different types of functions. Let's say you have a list of names that you want to print out in quick succession. Well, we'd use something called lists and for loops. So let's make a new variable called list of names. And then John, Andy, Alyssa, and I don't know, Emily. And then now we can do for I in list of names, which is basically for the amount of elements in list of names, print I, which will print every single one of them, not in this form right here, but it'll print it for every single time there's a name, and it'll loop through it. So we can run it, and then there's our add functions, and John, Andy, Alyssa, Emily. So we can also do stuff like for I in range 10, print add, for this is pretty much executing this 10 times. So for I in range 10, add two numbers, 1 plus I. And now if we do this, let's and then we can also use these things called comments to add comments to our code. So let's say read this, printing lists of names in variable list of names. Printing variables, printing I don't really want to execute this right now, so I can actually see the result and don't have to scroll down as much, so I can comment that out and use it later. So let's see, what's going on here? Oh, I forgot how to call it. And we can run the Python file. And what is happening? Oh, oops, I'm stupid. It's happened like 3 times now. Run Python file, and there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And have both of them. Oh, oops, I accidentally. Still need to comment that out. There we go. We got the list, we've got the numbers, we have everything. Now let's get data from the user to make a simple calculator. So I added the 2 functions for multiplying and subtracting, and now let's use all of our knowledge to make a simple calculator. And first of all, we have to learn something new called getting input from the user. So we have to use a built-in Python function called input, and then let's just do user input equals input what do you want to, and then we can do if user input equals addition, then we can make it execute. Adding number 1. Adding is not defined. Oh, equals equals. I said maybe equals equals. And then adding 2 equals inputs. And then now we would just do add 2 numbers. So I actually have to print it. Print add 2 numbers. Number 1. Adding 2. And then adding 1. Adding 1 and then adding 2. And then now, if we run this, what type of math do you want to do? It's down here. We can do addition. Number 1, 10 plus 15. And what's going on here? This is a fundamental part of programming. You have to know how many times you want to fail to achieve your end result. So let's figure out what's going on here. So we have return number 1 plus number 2. Might be because this input is a string, so we might have to do this function called, I think it's, what is it? This is actually where a very fundamental part of programming comes from. So we actually have to do some research to find out what's causing our problem. So first of all, let's say we've already made a hypothesis that our two numbers are a string because they're being inputted in a string. So let's search up how to convert a string to an integer in Python. And then the first thing that we can do, and the first thing that we see is that how to convert an integer in Python, you use the int built-in function. So let's add the int function to our adding variables and see if it works. So we can do addition, number 1, 10, 15. And look at that. We fixed our problem, and now we can go on to continuing to develop this. So I want you to continue doing this, but for dividing, multiplying, and subtracting. And pause the video, come back, see what happens, and see how much you got right. Alright, so this is our finished program. So we can run this, and we can do subtraction. So, oh, I spelled subtraction wrong. Now we can do subtraction. So 10 minus 15 would be a negative 5. And then we can run this again, and let's do multiplication. 10 times 10 is 100. And then let's just, for demonstration purposes, do this for division. 10 divided by 5 is not that. Turns out I accidentally forgot to replace this function with the divide 2 numbers. So let's run Python file, and then 10, 15, and it's 0.66 because I'm stupid. But now it's kind of annoying that we have to redo this every single time. Now we can make this always happen with a while loop, so we don't have to close the program, and we can stop using our calculator whenever we feel like it. So to execute something all the time while it's running, just do while true. Oh wait, true. I'm sorry, I've been coding a lot in C++ lately. Now we have to do while true, and then now all of this will run. It'll loop through this, and then once it's done with it, it'll go back up here. So run Python file. What type of math do you want to do? Addition, 10, 15, and then it goes back to it. And then we can always use our calculator whenever we want to. And math stuff. Fun. Now that this tutorial is done, I'd like to leave you with some projects. So you can either make a random number guessing game, make plot, or make a, I don't know, man. Just make whatever you want that's not too complicated. Because if you jump ahead and try to make some complicated thing, like some random, I don't know, man, something that's complicated, you will fail and you will get frustrated. Start simple, start learning, start researching, and start researching. Google, best friend. Stack Overflow, best friend. Even ChatGPT, best friend. Like, you can ask them, like, you can, if it'll load, I don't think it's up right now. But you can ask them anything, it'll give you an answer. Google is your best friend. So, just, yeah. Code, have fun, do what you will with this knowledge, and have a good day.